Hi, I'm Leigh Johnson from Proud-autistic-coaching. Every day, I see people posting in Facebook groups for autistic adults about how chronically burnt out they are and how they feel helpless and hopeless around it. I get it because that's where I was when I figured out that I was autistic 5 years ago. This may be why I feel so passionate about spreading the word that we don't need to feel helpless and hopeless and burnt out as autistic adults. This chronic autistic burnout is treatable and manageable through ditching neurotypical attitudes toward our sensory systems and managing your sensory health in an autism friendly way. I really don't see sensory health discussed enough when we talk about autistic burnout. Sensory overwhelm is the main hidden cause of autistic burnout, yet people focus more on social overwhelm. Yes, neurotypical social pressures play a part in autistic burnout, but so do the noises, movement, smells, physical contact, light, and uncertainty of social situations, as well as ignoring our sensory needs nearly all the time. How does paying attention to your autistic sensory health prevent burnout? First, what is autistic sensory health? Maybe it's something you haven't heard of or thought about before. But autistic people have unique sensory needs, and that's just how it is. We may have extra sensitive or undersensitive senses in any of our 8 sensory systems. We may have trouble reading or understanding certain senses, or may crave extra sensory input. In general, we do not have the sensory systems that the neurotypical world expects, systems that can go through a given day just fine being ignored. Our sensory systems are like beautiful orchids, gifted to someone who's been given instructions for taking care of a cactus. In other words, you do almost nothing to care for it. But autistic sensory health is paying attention to what your specific sensory system needs and giving it that instead of what the neurotypical standards say, which is to treat it like a cactus. But how does this prevent burnout? If you're not meeting your unique sensory needs, your body will constantly be in a place of sensory overwhelm or underwhelm. That chronic over or underwhelm will burn your system out, and you'll wonder how you got here because you were following the instructions for taking care of your cactus so well. You were following the wrong instructions. We cannot follow the same instructions that neurotypical people follow, which is to basically ignore one sensory system. Yet we were almost all taught from a young age to do exactly that. We were taught neurotypical standards, told we were too sensitive, and encouraged to do anything but listen to our own sensory needs. Could you imagine getting angry at an orchid for not thriving while being treated like a cactus? That's how we're treating our own bodies and ourselves. So, I love metaphors by now. Here's another one. Say you have chronic back pain. Or if you're me, you do have chronic back pain. Even at a low level, this pain is always there. At first, before you know that it's chronic, you feel the pain all the time. You're always thinking about it and wanting it to go away. Eventually, it does go away in a sense because your body stops noticing it all the time. This is a handy thing that our brains do to allow us to keep going. But has it gone away? No. It's still there, firing those neurons, but our brain is working to ignore that firing to survive. It's taking processing power. Am I mixing metaphors now? Let's just go with it. So now your brain is a computer and it's running a program to keep that pain at bay. Then you have pain crop up somewhere else that requires another program, then more pain and another program. That's a lot of processing power being used at all times just to ignore that chronic pain that is still there, even as you work so hard to ignore it. I say this because pain is something that we understand, but our sensory needs are incredibly similar. And what most autistic adults don't realize is that each of your heightened sensory needs is like that chronic pain in your body if you ignore it. If you're like me and sensitive to nearly all sensory input, the amount of work it takes your body to ignore those needs is likely using most of your energy. Yet we don't notice that it's working so hard because it's a program running in the background to hide the truth of our sensory needs. That's why I reached 42 having absolutely no idea that I had major sensory sensitivities and was chronically burnt out. I have another blog post that I'll link to that tells more about that story. I didn't even realize I was burnt out. And in that blog post, I talk about how ridiculous that might seem now because I understand my sensory needs and I work to meet them all the time. So, what can we do about our Orchid sensory systems and computer chip brains? The key is to stop ignoring your sensory needs and work with them, not against them. You need to figure out which of your senses are over and undersensitive, then figure out how to balance those needs. You might do this with a sensory diet or by implementing a sensory empowerment plan in my sensory empowerment program. I have more information on those in another video and blog post that I'll link to. This is why I built this program. It's to help other autistic adults use the techniques that I use to honor my sensory needs and break free from burnout. So now I have the instructions for taking care of my orchid, and I want to give you those instructions. I wish I could just write out the instructions for taking care of my sensory system and every other autistic adult could use them. But unfortunately, those instructions are different for every person because everyone has a different combination of specialized needs in the 8 sensory systems. I guess I shouldn't say everyone. There are similarities, but there are so many different options that's honestly, I think, part of why it's so hard for all of us to figure this out because we are all so different. And this is the reason why occupational therapists work with autistic individuals for months to meet their sensory needs. It's not a simple thing when you've been ignoring it your whole life and taught that you're supposed to. This is the reason I had to build a highly personalized coaching program to support others in this work. I wish there were an easier solution, and I'm going to start working on it, but at least there is a solution. You don't need to feel helpless and hopeless about your burnout any longer. I do also have a free guide called Unlock Your Energy 15 Proven Strategies to Ward Off Autistic Overwhelm that I'll link to. And that gives you other ways you can reduce your overwhelm and burnout. So please like and subscribe, of course, to support this work. I also have a tip jar that I'll link to. And I also have one-on-one coaching, and I have my sensory empowerment program that I'll link to below. So check it all out. I look forward to supporting you further in taking care of your orchids instead of treating them like a cactus. Bye.